Buyer. Have you ever wondered why some people achieve extraordinary success while others struggle their entire lives? Buyer. What if I told you that the difference between average and exceptional isn't luck, talent, or intelligence? Buyer. But something you can learn and master starting today. Imagine holding in your hands a map, not just any map. Buyer. But one that has guided millions of people from ordinary lives to extraordinary achievement. Buyer. So powerful that it has transformed struggling employees into successful entrepreneurs, troubled relationships into loving partnerships, and uncertain futures into clear paths of purpose and meaning. This isn't fantasy. This map exists, buyer. And today I'm going to walk you through it step by step, buyer, showing you how it can transform your life just as it has transformed mine and countless others across the world. My name is Grace, buyer, and today we're going to explore what I consider to be one of the most powerful books ever written, Habits of Highly Effective People, by Stephen Covey, buyer. But this isn't just a book summary, it's a journey into understanding the fundamental principles that guide successful, buyer. By the end of our time together, you'll have a clear blueprint for creating lasting change in every area of your life. Buyer. Think about it. Have you ever felt stuck in patterns that you know aren't serving you? Have you tried to change, only to fall back into old habits? Buyer. Have you wondered why some people seem to effortlessly achieve their goals while you struggle to make progress? If so, you're not alone. Exactly where you need to be right now. The power of the 7 habits lies not in quick fixes or superficial techniques. Instead, buyer, it offers something far more valuable, a set of principles that work from the inside out, transforming who you are as a person so that what you do naturally leads to success. As Covey himself said, to have more, buyer, we must first become more. So let's begin this journey together, exploring each habit in depth, understanding how they work together, and most importantly, discovering how you can apply them in your own life starting today. Are you ready? Let's dive in, buyer. Before we explore the 7 habits individually, it's important to understand the philosophy behind Covey's work. Buyer, many self-help approaches that focus on quick fixes or superficial techniques. Buyer. Covey's approach is based on timeless principles of effectiveness that have been recognized across cultures and throughout human history. Buyer. Covey distinguishes between what he calls the personality ethic and the character ethic. The personality ethic focuses on superficial behaviors, buyer, quick fixes, and social image. It's about appearing successful rather than building the foundation for true success. Buyer. Think of it as painting over rusty metal. It might look good temporarily, but the rust continues to spread underneath. In contrast, character ethic focuses on foundational principles like integrity, honesty, humility, courage, justice, patience, and industry. Buyer. These principles are like natural laws. They operate whether we acknowledge them or not. Buyer. Just as gravity works regardless of whether you believe in it. Buyer. These principles govern human effectiveness regardless of whether you recognize them. Buyer. This distinction is crucial because it explains why so many self-help approaches fail to create lasting change. Buyer. When we try to improve our lives through techniques and behaviors without addressing our underlying character and paradigms, our ways of seeing the world, we're treating symptoms rather than causes. Buyer. Covey argues that true effectiveness comes from aligning our behaviors with these natural principles. Buyer. It's not about finding shortcuts or tricks, but about understanding and working with the way reality actually functions. Buyer. It's like trying to navigate using an accurate map versus a misleading one. No amount of effort or positive thinking will help if your map doesn't reflect reality. Buyer. Another key concept in Covey's philosophy is the distinction between dependence, independence, and interdependence. You take care of me, or my problems are your fault, means taking responsibility for yourself. I can do it, or I am responsible. Interdependence means working cooperatively than you could separately. We can do, or why are responsible. Covey structures the 7 habits to move us along this maturity continue, and then from independence to interdependence, and then Pyre, with habit 7 focusing on continuous growth and renewal. This progression is important because many people get stuck at independence, buyer, viewing it as the ultimate goal, when in reality, the highest achievements in life require interdependence, working effectively with others. Buyer, with this foundation in place, let's begin our exploration of the 7 habits, starting with habit 50, be proactive. Habit 1, proactive, taking control of your life. Have you ever felt like life is happening to you rather than being shaped by you? Buyer, have you caught yourself blaming circumstances, other people, or bad luck for your situation? If so, buyer, what Covey calls a reactive mindset. And it's the first major barrier to effectiveness in your life. Buyer, being proactive is much more than just taking initiative. It's recognizing that you are responsible for your life, buyer, your choices, and your happiness. It means understanding the fundamental truth that while you can't control everything that happens to you, buyer, you always have the power to choose your response to what happens. Buyer. Covey introduces a powerful concept called the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. Your circle of concern includes everything you care about: the economy, buyer, the weather, politics, other people's behaviors, your health, your family, your job, and so on. Buyer. Within that larger circle is a smaller one, your circle of influence, which includes the things you can actually do something about. Buyer. Reactive people on their circle of concern, complaining about conditions, criticizing others, buyer, and blaming external factors for their situations. As they do this, buyer, their circle of influence shrinks because they're investing energy in areas they cannot control. Proactive people, on the other hand, buyer, focus on their circle of influence. They work on the things they can do something about, and as they do, buyer, something remarkable happens. Their circle of influence begins to expand. By taking responsibility for what they can change, buyer, they gradually gain more influence over previously uncontrollable aspects of their lives. Let me tell you about Maria, buyer, a student of mine who was stuck in a job she hated. Every day, she would complain about her unfair boss, her uncooperative colleagues, buyer, and the company's problematic policies. She felt trapped and miserable, seeing herself as a victim of circumstances. Buyer. When I introduced her to the concept of proactivity, she was skeptical at first. But these things are really happening, she insisted. Boss is unfair. The company policies are problematic. That may be true, I told her. Buyer. But focusing on those things keeps you trapped because they're outside your control. What can you control in this situation? Slowly, buyer, Maria began to shift her focus. Instead of complaining about her boss, she started improving her skills and performance to become more valuable. Buyer. Instead of criticizing colleagues, she looked for ways to build better working relationships. Instead of feeling trapped by company policies, buyer, she either found ways to work effectively within them or began exploring other job opportunities. 6 months later, buyer, Maria had not only received a promotion at her existing company, but had also started a small side business based on her passion for graphic design. Buyer. Her circumstances hadn't magically changed overnight, but by focusing on her circle of influence rather than her circle of concern. Buyer. She had changed, and that made all the difference. The language we use reveals a lot about our level of proactivity. Buyer. Reactive language sounds like, "Bye, I am." "Hey makes me so angry. I can't do that. I have to do this." Or, if only. Proactive language, in contrast. Buyer. Bide, I can choose a different approach. I control my feelings. I can create an effective presentation. I will find a way. Or I choose to. Notice how reactive language absolves us of responsibility while proactive language embraces it. Buyer. Our words not only reflect our thoughts but also shape them. By consciously choosing more proactive language, buyer, begin to think more proactively, and our circle of influence expands accordingly. Buyer. Being proactive doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending problems don't exist. Buyer. It means acknowledging reality while taking responsibility for your response to it. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, buyer, expressed this perfectly when he wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." Buyer. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Even in the most horrific circumstances imaginable, a Nazi concentration camp, Frankl recognized that while he couldn't control the external conditions, buyer, he could control his internal response. He could choose his attitude, his focus, and his meaning. This is the essence of proactivity, buyer, and it's the foundation for all the habits that follow. So how can you apply this habit in your daily life? Buyer. Start by becoming aware of your language. When you catch yourself using reactive phrases, buyer, pause and rephrase your thoughts in more proactive terms. Have to. Say, "I choose to." Instead of, "They won't let me," say, "I'm going to find a way." Next, buyer. Identify an ongoing problem in your life and determine whether it falls within your circle of influence. If it doesn't, buyer, practice accepting it and focusing elsewhere. If it does, take one proactive step toward addressing it. Finally, commit to spending 1 week focusing exclusively on your circle of influence. Don't complain, don't criticize, buyer. Don't blame, just focus on what you can do and do it. At the end of the week, buyer, notice how your perspective and your circumstances have begun to shift. Remember, buyer, proactivity is not just about what you do, it's about who you are. It's a way of seeing yourself and your relationship to the world. Buyer. When you embrace the truth that you are responsible for your life, buyer, you claim the power to shape it according to your highest values and aspirations. And that brings us to habit 12, begin with the end in mind. Buyer. Habit 13, with the end in mind, creating a personal vision. Have you ever reached the end of a busy day, week, or even year, buyer, and wondered where the time went? Have you achieved goals only to find that they didn't bring the satisfaction you expected, buyer? Have you ever felt like you're efficiently climbing a ladder, only to discover it's leaning against the wrong wall, buyer? These experiences point to the need for habit 20, begin with the end in mind. Buyer. This habit is based on the principle that all things are created twice, first mentally, then physically. Buyer. Just as a building is first created in detailed blueprints before construction begins, buyer, your life takes shape first in your mind before it becomes reality through your actions. Buyer. The essence of habit 2 is creating a clear vision of what you want to achieve before you start working toward it. Buyer. It's about defining what success truly means to you, not what society, your parents, your peers, buyer, or social media influencers say it should be, but what aligns with your deepest values and aspirations. Buyer. Covey suggests a powerful thought experiment. Imagine attending your own funeral 3 years from now. Buyer. 4 speakers will address the gathering: a family member, a friend, a work colleague, buyer, and someone from a community organization where you've served. What would you want each of them to say about you, your character, buyer, your contributions, and your legacy? This exercise isn't meant to be morbid. Rather, buyer. It helps clarify what matters most to you when all is said and done. Buyer. Most people discover that they want to be remembered for qualities like love, integrity, service, buyer, and meaningful contributions, not for the size of their bank account or the impressiveness of their job title. Buyer. By starting with this end in mind, the legacy you want to leave, you can work backward to ensure your daily actions align with your ultimate goals. Covey puts it, it's incredibly easy to get caught up in an activity trap, in the busyness of life. Buyer. To work harder and harder at climbing the ladder of success only to discover it's leaning against the wrong wall. Let me share the story of Alex, buyer, a successful corporate attorney I worked with. By traditional measures, Alex had it all: a high-paying job at a prestigious firm, buyer, a beautiful home in an exclusive neighborhood, and all the trappings of success. Yet he was profoundly unhappy, working 80-hour weeks, buyer, disconnected from his family, and suffering from stress-related health problems. When I introduced him to the funeral exercise, buyer, Alex was initially resistant. But when he finally engaged with it honestly, buyer, he realized that the eulogy he hoped for, one that spoke of his love for his family, his mentorship of others, his integrity, buyer, and his contributions to causes he cared about, bore little resemblance to the life he was currently living, buyer. This realization was painful but transformative. Over the next year, Alex gradually restructured his life. Buyer negotiated a different role at his firm that allowed more reasonable hours. He scheduled non-negotiable family time. Buyer. He began mentoring young attorneys and volunteering with a legal aid organization. His income decreased somewhat, buyer, but his satisfaction and sense of purpose increased dramatically, buyer. Alex's story illustrates that beginning with the end in mind isn't just about setting goals. It's about ensuring those goals reflect what truly matters to you, buyer. It's about creating a personal mission statement that serves as a constitution for your life, buyer, a standard against which you can evaluate all your activities and decisions. A personal mission statement addresses 3 key components. 1. Buyer. Character: who do you want to be? What qualities and virtues do you want to embody? 2. Contributions. What do you want to accomplish? Buyer. How do you want to make a difference? 3. Values. What principles will guide your decisions and actions? Buyer. Creating such a statement takes time and deep reflection, but it provides immense clarity. Buyer. It becomes a personal constitution against which you can evaluate all your decisions and activities. Buyer. When faced with competing demands or opportunities, you can ask, does this align with my mission statement? If not, buyer. It may be efficient but not effective activity without purpose. To begin creating your own mission statement, buyer, consider the following questions. What are the most important roles in your life? Parent, spouse, professional, community member, buyer. What are the core values that should guide you in each role? What key relationships matter most to you, buyer? And how do you want to show up in those relationships, buyer? What contributions do you want to make in your lifetime? What principles will you never compromise, no matter the circumstances, buyer? Your answers to these questions will help you craft a mission statement that reflects your authentic self and highest aspirations, buyer. This statement becomes your personal constitution, a a standard against which you can evaluate all your activities and decisions. Buyer. Beginning with the end in mind also applies to specific projects, relationships, and goals. Before starting a project, buyer, clarify what success looks like. Before entering a negotiation, determine your ideal outcome. Before having an important conversation, buyer, consider what you hope to achieve. Buyer. This habit of mental creation before physical creation ensures that your actions are purposeful rather than merely reactive. Buyer. It puts you in the driver's seat of your life, allowing you to shape your circumstances rather than being shaped by them. However, buyer. Having a vision is only the first step. You must then translate that vision into reality through day-to-day actions and decisions. Buyer. And that brings us to habit 30, put first things first. Habit 30, put first things first, managing your priorities. Picture this. Buyer. You start your day with the best intentions. You have important goals you want to work toward, meaningful relationships you want to nurture. Buyer. And personal growth you want to pursue. But by the end of the day, you've spent most of your time responding to emails. Buyer. Attending unproductive meetings, scrolling through social media, and putting out fires. Your most important priorities remain untouched. Buyer. If this scenario sounds familiar, you're not alone. Buyer. Many people struggle with the gap between what they intend to do and what they actually accomplish. This is the challenge that habit 3, buyer, put first things first, addresses. 1 says, you are the programmer. And habit 2 says, write the program. Habit 3 says, run the program. It's about living out your priorities day by day. Buyer. Moment by moment, it's where vision meets execution, where values are translated into actions. Buyer. Covey introduces a powerful tool called the time management matrix, which categorizes activities based on 2 factors: urgency and importance. Buyer. Matters demand immediate attention. They press on us. They insist on action. Examples include ringing phones, deadline-driven projects. Buyer. Pressing problems and emergency situations. Important matters contribute to our mission, values, and high-priority goals. Buyer. They might include relationship building, planning, prevention, capacity building, and recognizing new opportunities. Buyer. When we combine these factors, we get 4 quadrants: quadrant 1, urgent and importance, crisis, pressing problems. Buyer. Deadline-driven projects, quadrant 20, not urgent but important, prevention, relationship building, planning, recreation. Development, quadrant 3, urgent but not importance. Interruptions, some calls, some meetings, many, pressing. Matters, quadrant 4. Buyer and not important, trivia. Time wasters, escape, activities. Buyer. Excessive social media. Most people spend the majority of their time in quadrants 1 and 3. Buyer. Dealing with urgent matters, whether they're important or not. They're constantly putting out fires, responding to the demands of others. Buyer. And feeling like they never have time for what matters most. The key to effective time management, according to Covey, buyer, is to increase time spent in quadrant 20, important but not urgent activities. Buyer. These are the things that don't demand immediate attention but contribute significantly to your long-term success and well-being. Things like planning. Buyer. Prevention, relationship building, learning, and self-care. The challenge is that quadrant 2 activities don't scream for our attention. Buyer. No one calls us with an emergency request to build our relationship, improve our health, or plan strategically. Buyer. These activities require proactive choice rather than reactive response. They ask us to prioritize importance over urgency. Buyer. Let me tell you about Carlos, a small business owner who was constantly overwhelmed. He worked 12-hour days, always busy with customer demands, buyer, employee issues, and administrative tasks. Despite his hard work, his business wasn't growing. His health was suffering, buyer, and his family relationships were strained. When I introduced Carlos to the time management matrix, realized he was spending almost all his time in quadrants 1 and 3 responding to crises and urgent requests. Buyer. He had no time for strategic planning, employee development, systems improvement, buyer, or maintaining his health, all quadrant 2 activities that would prevent many of the crises he was experiencing. Buyer. Carlos committed to scheduling time each week specifically for quadrant 2 activities. Buyer. He blocked off Tuesday and Thursday mornings for strategic planning and systems development. Buyer. He scheduled regular one-on-one meetings with key employees to mentor them. Buyer. He made his exercise routine non-negotiable by scheduling it first thing in the morning. The results weren't immediate, but over 6 months, buyer, Carlos saw remarkable changes. As he invested in systems and employee development, the daily crisis decreased. Buyer. His business became more stable and started growing again. His stress levels decreased. Buyer. And his family noticed he was more present and engaged when at home. Carlos's story illustrates a key paradox. Buyer. The more time you spend in quadrant 2, the less time you'll need to spend in quadrant 1. By investing in prevention, planning, buyer, and relationship building, you reduce the crisis, problems, and deadline-driven projects that consume so much of your time and energy. How do you make this shift? Covey suggests several practical approaches. 1. Identify your key roles, e.g., individual, spouse, parent, professional, community member, and select the most important quadrant 2 activities for each role. 2. Buyer. Schedule time for these activities on a weekly basis. Buyer. Before your calendar fills with other demands. Guard this time as you would any important appointment. 3. Buyer. Learn to say no to activities that don't align with your priorities, even if they seem urgent. Buyer. Saying no to something means saying yes to something more important. 4. Delegate effectively. Buyer. Focusing your time on things only you can do while empowering others to handle tasks they can manage. 5. Buyer. Establish systems and processes that reduce recurring crises and problems. The essence of habit 3 is organizing and executing around priorities. Buyer. It's not about efficiency, doing things right, but effectiveness, doing the right things. You might efficiently clear your email inbox, buyer. But if that means neglecting your most important projects or relationships, you're not being effective. Remember the analogy of the big rocks, pebbles, sand and water. If you fill your jar with sand and water first, the trivial many, buyer, you'll have no room for the big rocks, the vital few. But if you put the big rocks in first, the sand and water will fill in around them, buyer, and everything fits. That's what habit 3 is about, putting the big rocks, your most important priorities, into your schedule first, buyer. Then letting the less important activities fill in around them, buyer. This habit completes the transition from dependence to independence in Covey's maturity continuum. Through habits 1-3, buyer. You've moved from being a product of your circumstances, reactive, to being the creator of your circumstances, proactive, buyer. From lacking direction to having a clear vision, and from letting others dictate your schedule to organizing your life around your priorities, buyer. But true greatness isn't found in independence alone. The highest achievements in life require working effectively with others. Brings us to habit 40, think win-win. Habit 4, buyer. Win, creating mutually beneficial solutions. In a world that often promotes competition and self-interest, buyer. Habit 4 stands as a powerful alternative. Think win. Win is based on the paradigm that there is plenty for everyone, buyer. And that one person's success doesn't require another's failure, buyer. This habit focuses on interpersonal leadership, how we interact with and influence others. It's about approaching conflicts, negotiations, buyer, and relationships with the mindset that mutually beneficial solutions exist if we're committed to finding them. Identifies 6 paradigms of human interaction. 1. Win. Win seeking mutual benefit in all human interactions. Mindset believe in finding solutions that satisfy all parties involved. 2. Win. Lose. Buyer. The competitive paradigm that views life as a zero-sum game. For me to win, you must lose. Buyer. This approach sees others' success as a threat to one's own. 3. Lose-win. The doormat approach where people are quick to please or appease. Buyer. Seeking popularity or acceptance at the cost of their own needs. 4. Lose. Lose. When to win, lose people interact. Buyer. The result is often lose. Lose. Both parties end up worse off in their determination to make sure the other person doesn't win. 5. Win. Buyer. This paradigm doesn't necessarily require someone else to lose, but it's focused solely on getting what one wants. No concern about others' outcomes. 6. Win-win or no deal. If a mutually beneficial solution cannot be found, parties agree to disagree. No deal. This option provides tremendous emotional freedom in relationships. Of these paradigms, buyer. Win is the only sustainable approach for long-term success in most relationships and endeavors. Buyer. Lose might work in short-term competitive situations, but it destroys trust and cooperation over time. Buyer. Win leads to resentment and passive-aggressive behavior. And lose benefits no one. Buyer. The win-win paradigm is built on character traits like integrity, maturity, buyer, and the abundance mentality, the belief that there's plenty for everyone, and that sharing recognition, profit, buyer, or good fortune helps create more opportunities for everyone. Let me share the story of 2 business partners, Sarah and Michael, buyer, who came to me for help resolving a conflict that was threatening their venture. They had founded a marketing agency together, buyer, with Sarah handling creative work and Michael managing client relationships. As the business grew, tensions emerged over workload, buyer, client management decisions, and profit distribution. Their initial approaches were counterproductive. Sarah, taking a win-lose approach, buyer, demanded more control over client relationships and a larger share of profits based on the hours she worked. Michael, buyer, adopting a lose-win stance initially, gave in to keep the peace but grew increasingly resentful. Buyer. I guided them through a win-win negotiation process that started with a crucial first step. Buyer. Seeking first to understand each other's needs and concerns before trying to be understood. Buyer. Sarah realized that Michael's client management role, while less time-intensive than her creative work, buyer, brought in most of their business through his networking skills and relationships. Buyer. Michael recognized that Sarah's creative excellence was the foundation of their service offering and required intense periods of work. Buyer. From this deeper understanding, they developed a new partnership agreement that recognized both their contributions. Buyer. A base compensation structure that acknowledged Sarah's greater time commitment. Buyer. Coupled with performance bonuses tied to client acquisition, recognizing Michael's strength and client satisfaction with creative works, recognizing Sarah's contribution. Buyer. They also created clearer boundaries around their respective roles while establishing regular strategic meetings where both had input on the company's direction. Buyer. This win-win solution strengthened their partnership, increased their business success, buyer, and restored their friendship, all because they were willing to seek mutual benefit rather than victory over each other. Buyer. Win-win outcomes requires a combination of 3 character traits. 1. Integrity, staying true to your values and commitments. 2. Buyer. Maturity, expressing your ideas and feelings with courage while also considering the ideas and feelings of others. 3. abundance mentality. Buyer. Believing there is plenty for everyone instead of seeing life as a competition for limited resources. The process of finding win solutions follows these steps. Buyer 1. See the problem from the other person's perspective. Try to genuinely understand their needs and concerns. 2. Identify the key issues and concerns, not positions of all parties. 3. Buyer. Determine what results would constitute a fully acceptable solution for all parties. 4. Identify possible new options to achieve those results. Buyer. This process requires both courage to stand up for what you need and considerations to respect what others need. Buyer. It's not about splitting the difference or compromising where both parties give up something important. Rather, buyer. It's about creative cooperation to find a third alternative that meets everyone's needs. Buyer. Win may require changing systems that currently reward win-lose behavior in organizations. Buyer. This might mean revising compensation and recognition systems to reward collaboration rather than internal competition. In families. Buyer. It might mean replacing authoritarian or permissive parenting with an approach that balances clear expectations with involvement in decision-making. Buyer. The win-win paradigm transforms not just how we resolve conflicts, but how we approach all human interaction. Buyer. It replaces competition with cooperation, suspicion with trust, and self-interest with mutual benefit. Buyer. And while it's not always easy, especially in a culture that often glorifies winning at others' expense, it's the only approach that builds lasting relationships and sustainable success. Buyer. However, finding win-win solutions requires a skill that many people lack: the ability to deeply understand others' perspectives, needs. Buyer. And that brings us to habit 50: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit 50: seek first to understand, buyer, then to be understood. The art of empathic listening. If you've ever felt misunderstood, ignored, or unfairly judged, buyer, you know how frustrating and demoralizing it can be. Unfortunately, buyer, most people spend more time trying to be understood than trying to understand. Buyer. Listen autobiographically, filtering everything through our own experiences, judgments, and solutions rather than empathically. Buyer. Seeking to truly understand another's perspective. Habit 5D: seek first to understand, buyer, then to be understood addresses this common communication gap. Buyer. It's about developing the rare skill of empathic listening, listening with the intent to understand, not with the intent to reply. Buyer. Or control. Covey points out that most of us have spent years learning to read, write, and speak. Buyer. But had little, if any, training in listening. Yet effective listening is perhaps the most critical communication skill. Buyer. It's the foundation of trust, respect, and productive problem solving. There are 4 levels of listening, each progressively more effective. 1. Buyer. Ignoring, not listening at all. 2. Pretend listening, making sounds like who, huh, while thinking about something else. 3. Buyer. Selective listening, hearing only certain parts of the conversation. 4. Attentive listening, paying attention to the words being said. 5. Buyer. Empathic listening, understanding not just the words but the emotions and meaning behind them. Empathic listening goes beyond attentive listening. Buyer. It involves entering another person's frame of reference, seeing the world as they see it, understanding their paradigm. Buyer. And feeling what they feel. It's a tremendous deposit in the emotional bank account of a relationship. Buyer. Satisfying the demon need to be understood. Let me illustrate with the story of Lisa and her teenage daughter Emma. Buyer. Lisa approached me in desperation, describing her daughter as rebellious, uncommunicative, and making poor choices with friends. Buyer. Every conversation ended in arguments or stony silence. Lisa had tried reasoning, lecturing, punishing, and pleading, all to no avail. Buyer. I suggested that Lisa try empathic listening, genuinely trying to understand Emma's world without judgment or agenda. Buyer. Lisa was skeptical but agreed to try. The next time Emma came home looking upset, instead of asking accusatory questions or giving advice. Buyer. Lisa simply said, "You seem upset. Would you like to talk about it?" When Emma hesitantly began sharing, buyer. Lisa practiced empathic listening, focusing completely on understanding Emma's perspective. Buyer. Reflecting back what she heard, so you felt embarrassed when that happened. And withholding judgment or solutions. Buyer. She noticed subtle cues in Emma's tone and body language, asking gentle questions to understand more deeply. For the first time in months, buyer, they had a real conversation. Emma revealed feelings of social anxiety, pressure to fit in, buyer, and fear of disappointing her parents' issues Lisa had never fully appreciated. This understanding changed everything, buyer. Lisa could now see that what she had interpreted as rebellion was often anxiety and insecurity. From this new understanding, buyer, they could begin working on solutions together. This story illustrates the transformative power of empathic listening. Buyer. Until people feel genuinely understood, they're unlikely to be open to influence or solutions. As the saying goes, buyer. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Empathic listening is not a technique. It's a way of being. It requires temporarily setting aside your own autobiography, your own opinions, judgments, buyer, and solutions to truly enter another person's world. This doesn't mean you agree with everything they say or feel, buyer. It means you fully understand it. How do you practice empathic listening? Covey suggests several key behaviors. 1. Focus completely on the speaker. Put away distractions like phones or computers, maintain appropriate eye contact, and be present. 2. Buyer. Listen for both content and feeling. Words convey content, but tone, pace, volume, buyer, and body language often communicate the deeper emotional message. 3. Reflect back what you hear, both in terms of content and feeling. And you feel. Because 4. Clarify by asking questions. Is that what you mean? Can you tell me more about that? 5. Sensitive to what is not being said. Buyer. Sometimes the most important clues to understanding come from what is implied rather than stated directly. 6. Buyer. Withhold evaluation and advice until you've truly understood. Premature evaluation closes the door to deeper understanding. Buyer. Empathic listening takes time, but it actually saves time in the long run. When people feel understood, they become more open, less defensive, buyer, and more willing to understand your perspective in return. This leads to more effective problem solving and stronger relationships, buyer. Once you have truly understood another person, you've earned the right to be understood yourself. That's the second part of habit 50, to be understood. Seeking to be understood requires courage, clarity, and skill. Covey recommends the Greek ethos, pathos, buyer, and logos approach to presenting your ideas. 1. Ethos, your personal credibility, the trust you've established. 2. Buyer. Pathos, your empathic understanding of the other person's needs and concerns. 3. Buyer. Logos, the logical reasoning behind your proposal. When you've established credibility through trust, ethos, and demonstrated understanding of the other person's perspective, pathos, buyer, your logical presentations, logos becomes far more persuasive. For example, when Lisa had genuinely understood Emma's struggles, buyer, she was able to share her own concerns about Emma's new friends not as criticism, but as caring. Because Emma felt understood, buyer, she was more willing to listen to and consider her mother's perspective. Habit 5 transforms both personal and professional relationships. Buyer. It prevents misunderstandings, resolves conflicts, creates trust, and opens the door to creative problem solving. Buyer, when combined with habit force, think win, win. It creates the conditions for synergistic solutions, which brings us to habit 6. Habit 6. Buyer. Synergize, creating cooperative advantages. Have you ever been part of a team that achieved something extraordinary, something that no individual could have accomplished alone? Buyer. Have you experienced a conversation where exciting new ideas emerged that none of the participants had considered before? If so, buyer, you've experienced synergy, the essence of habit 6. Synergy is one of those words that's often used but rarely understood. At its core, buyer, it means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In human terms, buyer, it means that the relationship between people and what they create together is greater than what they could create separately. Buyer. Covey explains that synergy results from valuing differences, different perspectives, ideas, backgrounds, and strengths. Buyer. Most people instinctively seek out others who think like them and are uncomfortable with difference. Buyer. But the magic of synergy occurs precisely when different viewpoints interact to create new insights and possibilities. Think about music. Buyer. When different notes come together in harmony, they create something more beautiful and complex than any single note could achieve. Buyer. Or consider cooking, where combining ingredients creates flavors that none of the individual ingredients possess on their own. This is synergy, human interaction. Synergy occurs when people genuinely seek to understand each other's perspectives. Habit 5. And look for mutually beneficial solutions. Habit 4. Buyer. The result is creative cooperation, finding a third alternative that's better than either person's original proposal. Buyer. Let me share a story about a product development team I worked with at a consumer electronics company. Buyer. The team was deadlocked in a dispute between engineering and marketing. Buyer. The engineers had designed a feature-rich product that was technologically impressive, but complex to use. Buyer. Marketing insisted on simplicity and user-friendliness, even if it meant cutting features. Both sides had valid points, but neither would budge. Buyer. I facilitated a session where both groups practiced habits 4 and 5, genuinely seeking to understand each other's concerns and looking for win-win solutions. Buyer. As mutual understanding grew, something remarkable happened. Instead of choosing between complexity and simplicity, buyer, the team began exploring a completely different approach, a streamlined interface that made advanced features accessible through progressive disclosure. Buyer. This solution preserved the engineering team's sophisticated functionality while meeting marketing's requirement for user-friendliness. Buyer. This third alternative emerged only because the team moved from defending positions to understanding each other's underlying concerns and collaborating creatively. Synergy in action. Synergy doesn't just happen, it requires specific conditions. 1. A win-win mindset that seeks mutual benefit. 2. Empathic communication, where people feel safe to express their views. 3. Valuing diversity of thought and perspective. 4. Buyer. Creative cooperation rather than compromise. 5. Buyer. Openness to new possibilities and willingness to abandon preconceived notions. Creating synergy often requires vulnerability, the willingness to share your ideas, knowing they might be improved upon. Buyer. To admit you don't have all the answers and to be open to solutions you haven't considered. This vulnerability can feel uncomfortable. Buyer. Especially in competitive environments, but it's essential for true creative cooperation. Buyer. Many people have experienced negative teamwork, where meetings are boring, people guard their territories. Buyer. And communication is cautious and calculated. True synergy is the opposite. It's exciting, creative, buyer, and often surprising in the alternatives it produces. In relationships, buyer. Synergy means that differences become strengths rather than sources of conflict. Buyer. A husband who tends to be analytical and a wife who tends to be intuitive can, through synergistic interaction, buyer, develop solutions that incorporate both logic and intuition. Buyer. Parents with different approaches to discipline can develop a third alternative that draws on the wisdom of both perspectives. In organizations, buyer. Synergy allows diverse teams to develop products, services, and strategies that no individual or homogeneous group could create. Buyer. Research consistently shows that diverse teams, when effectively led, buyer, outperform homogeneous teams in innovation and problem-solving precisely because of the creative tension that diversity creates. Buyer. How can you cultivate synergy in your interactions? Covey suggests several approaches. 1. See differences as opportunities, not threats. Buyer. When someone disagrees with you, get curious rather than defensive. Ask yourself, what might they see that I don't? 2. Buyer. Create psychological safety. In groups, ensure that everyone feels safe to express their views without fear of ridicule or rejection. Acknowledge and appreciate all contributions. 3. Listen with the third ear for feelings, meanings, and underlying values, not just stated positions. 4. Brainstorm without judgment. Allow ideas to flow freely before evaluating them. Buyer. Often the wildest ideas contain seeds of brilliant solutions. 5. Look for the third alternative, not my way or your way. Buyer. But a better way neither of us has thought of yet. Synergy can feel magical when it happens. Buyer. But it's not magic, it's the natural result of applying principles of creative cooperation, empathic listening, and win-win thinking. Buyer. And when people experience true synergy, it changes how they see the world and their relationships. Buyer. They recognize that creative whole is truly greater than the sum of its parts. However, buyer. Creating and maintaining synergistic relationships requires ongoing investment in yourself and others. That brings us to Habit 7, saw. Habit 7, buyer. Sharpen the saw, preserving and enhancing your greatest asset. Imagine you're walking through a forest and come across someone frantically sawing down a tree. They've been at it for hours, sweating and exhausted. You notice their saw is dull, making the work much harder than it needs to be. Buyer. Why don't you stop and sharpen your saw? You suggest. It would make the cutting go much faster? I don't have time, they reply. Buyer. I'm too busy sawing. This parable illustrates the predicament many of us find ourselves in. Buyer. We're so busy with the urgent demands of life that we neglect the very activities that would make us more effective and enhance our capacity to handle those demands. Buyer. We don't take time to sharpen our saw. Habit 7a, sharpen the saw, is about preserving and enhancing your greatest asset, yourself. Buyer. It recognizes that you are the instrument of all your production and effectiveness. Buyer. And that maintaining that instrument is vital for sustainable success and well-being. Buyer. Covey describes 4 dimensions of renewal that must be addressed for balanced self-care. 1. Physical exercise, nutrition, stress management, buyer, and rest. 2. Reading, learning, writing, and mental visualization. 3. Social emotional building, meaningful relationships, giving service, buyer, and practicing empathy. 4. Spiritual value clarification, meditation, study, and connection with nature. These dimensions are interdependent. Buyer. Neglecting any one area negatively impacts the others. For example, physical exhaustion affects your mental sharpness, emotional stability, buyer, and even your sense of purpose. Conversely, attending to all 4 creates an upward spiral of growth and change, buyer, with each dimension supporting and enhancing the others. Let me share the story of James, buyer, powered executive who came to me on the verge of burnout. By traditional measures, buyer, James was successful. He had risen quickly in his company, earned an impressive salary, and was respected for his work ethic and results. Buyer. But he was exhausted, irritable, increasingly cynical, and suffering from stress-related health problems. When we analyzed his life, buyer, it became clear that James was neglecting all four dimensions of renewal. Physically, he slept little, ate poorly, buyer, and hadn't exercised in years. Mentally, he consumed only work-related information, leaving no room for broader learning or creativity. Buyer. Socially, his relationships were suffering due to his constant work focus. Spiritually, buyer. He had lost connection with his deeper values and sense of purpose beyond professional achievement. Buyer. We developed a comprehensive, sharpening the saw program for James. He committed to exercising 3 times a week and getting adequate sleep. Buyer. He reserved time for reading outside his field and pursuing a long-neglected interest in astronomy. Buyer. He scheduled regular date nights with his wife and time with his children. Buyer. And he began a daily practice of reflection and meditation to reconnect with his values and purpose. The results were remarkable. Buyer. Within 3 months, James reported more energy, better focus, improved relationships, and a renewed sense of enthusiasm for his work. Buyer. By taking time away from work to sharpen his saw, he became more productive and effective when he was working. Buyer. His colleagues noticed the difference, commenting on his improved mood, creativity, and leadership. Buyer. This balanced renewal isn't a luxury or an indulgence. It's necessary for sustainable high performance in any area of life. Buyer. Just as a vehicle needs regular maintenance to run optimally, human beings need regular renewal in all 4 dimensions. Buyer. Physical renewal involves caring for your physical body through regular exercise, proper nutrition, stress management, and adequate rest. Buyer. Research consistently shows that physical exercise enhances mental function, emotional well-being, and energy levels. Despite knowing this, buyer, many people don't have time to exercise, a classic example of the urgency problem discussed in Habit 3. Buyer. The reality is that regular physical activity gives you more energy and mental clarity, making your working hours more productive. Buyer. Mental renewal involves continuous learning, stimulating mental exercises, and exposure to new ideas and perspectives. Buyer. This could mean reading good literature, writing in a journal, solving puzzles, or studying a new subject. In a world of rapid change, buyer. The ability to learn continuously is perhaps the most valuable skill you can develop. As Alvin Toffler noted, buyer. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot unlearn. Buyer. Social emotional renewal focuses on meaningful relationships, service to others, and developing emotional intelligence. Buyer. Humans are inherently social beings, and the quality of our relationships significantly impacts our well-being and effectiveness. Buyer. This dimension includes practicing empathy, making contributions to others' lives, and nurturing important relationships. Buyer. It also involves developing emotional awareness and regulation, understanding your emotions, and choosing your responses rather than reacting impulsively. Buyer. Spiritual renewal centers on clarifying and connecting with your values, purpose, and sense of meaning. This might involve meditation, prayer, buyer time in nature, inspiring reading, or meaningful service. Buyer. The spiritual dimension provides a sense of centeredness and direction that guides all other activities. Buyer. It's about answering fundamental questions. What matters most to me? What gives my life meaning? What contribution do I want to make? Buyer. The beauty of Habit 7 is that it acknowledges our multi-dimensional nature as human beings. Buyer. We're not just physical beings who need exercise and nutrition, nor just mental beings who need intellectual stimulation. Buyer. Nor just social beings who need relationships, nor just spiritual beings who need meaning and purpose. We are all of these simultaneously. Buyer. And balanced renewal requires attention to all dimensions. Buyer. Implementing Habit 7 requires scheduling time for renewal activities in all 4 dimensions. Stephen Covey recommends at least 1 hour each day dedicated to sharpening the saw. Buyer. This investment of time yields returns far greater than the time spent. You become more productive, creative, balanced, and fulfilled. Buyer. For the physical dimension, you might schedule regular exercise, plan healthier meals, establish a consistent sleep schedule. Buyer. Or practice stress management techniques like deep breathing. For the mental dimension, you could set aside time for reading, buyer, learning a new skill, writing, or engaging in stimulating conversations and debates. For the social-emotional dimension, buyer, you might schedule quality time with loved ones, join a community organization, practice acts of service, buyer, or work with a therapist or coach on emotional intelligence. For the spiritual dimension, you could establish a meditation or prayer practice, buyer, spend time in nature, clarify your personal mission statement, or study inspirational literature, buyer. The key is to find activities that are meaningful and rejuvenating for you personally. What renews one person might drain another, buyer. An extrovert might be energized by social gatherings, while an introvert might need solitude to recharge, buyer. Honor your unique needs and preferences while ensuring you're addressing all 4 dimensions. Habit 7 completes the 7 habits by focusing on preservation and enhancement. Buyer. It recognizes that maintaining effectiveness requires ongoing renewal and growth. Without this habit, buyer, the other 6 would eventually be undermined by exhaustion, burnout, and imbalance. Now that we've explored all 7 habits, buyer, let's step back and see how they work together as an integrated whole. The 7 habits, buyer. An integrated approach to effectiveness. Stephen Covey's 7 habits aren't isolated techniques or quick fixes. They form a holistic approach to personal and interpersonal effectiveness. Buyer. Each habit builds upon the others, creating a progression from dependence to independence to interdependence. Habits 1, 2, and 3 focus on self-mastery and moving from dependence to independence. Habit Be proactive is about taking responsibility for your life. Buyer. Recognizing your freedom to choose your responses and focusing on your circle of influence rather than your circle of concern. Habit Toin, buyer. Begin with the end in mind involves creating a personal vision based on timeless principles and values, buyer, ensuring that your ladder of success is leaning against the right wall. Habit 30, put first things first is about executing priorities, buyer. Organizing and managing time and events according to the personal vision developed in Habit 2, and spending more time in Quadrant 2 activities. Habits 4, 5, and 6 focus on teamwork, cooperation, and moving from independence to interdependence. Habit 40, buyer. Think win-win establishes mutual benefit as the goal of all interactions, buyer. Placing competition with cooperation and ensuring that agreements or solutions benefit all parties. Habit 5D Seek first to understand, buyer. Then to be understood emphasizes empathic, listening to genuinely understand others before seeking to be understood yourself, buyer. Building the foundation for respect and creative problem solving. Habit 6C Synergize creates cooperative advantages through valuing differences, third alternatives, and achieving results that cannot be reached by individual effort alone. Habit 70, buyer. Sharpen the saw surrounds the other habits, enabling and enhancing them through continuous renewal, in the four dimensions of life: physical, environmental, social, emotional, and spiritual. These habits work together synergistically. For example, buyer. Habit 1 enables you to take the initiative to begin with the end in mind. Habit 2, understanding your priorities. Habit 2 allows you to put first things first. Habit 3, buyer. Being secure in your personal effectiveness. Habits 1-3 gives you the foundation to think wins. Habit 4, rather than competing with others. Thinking. Habit 4 creates the right conditions for empathic listening. Habit 5, which in turn enables synergy. Habit 6, buyer. And sharpening the sauce. Habit 7 gives you the capacity and balance to practice all the other habits effectively. Buyer. The 7 habits also incorporate the 3 fundamental components needed for any change. Buyer. What to do and why. Skill. How to do it. Desire. The motivation to do it. Real change requires all 3 components. Buyer. Knowledge without skill or desire leads to knowing what to do but not doing it. Buyer. Skill without knowledge or desire leads to mechanistic application without understanding or commitment. Buyer. Desire without knowledge or skill leads to frustration. The 7 habits address all 3 aspects of change, providing the what, why, how, buyer, and motivation for personal and interpersonal effectiveness. It's important to recognize that mastering these habits is a lifelong journey. Destination. No one perfectly embodies all 7 habits all the time. The goal is continuous improvement, not perfection. Buyer. As you practice these habits, you'll develop greater capacity to apply them in more difficult circumstances and more consistently over time. Buyer. Let me share one final story that illustrates the integrated power of the 7 habits. Buyer. Elena was a middle manager at a healthcare organization who felt stuck in her career and overwhelmed by competing demands from work, family, buyer, and community commitments. She was constantly exhausted, frequently reactive, and felt her life was out of balance. Buyer. Through applying the 7 habits, Elena transformed her approach to life's challenges. Buyer. She began taking responsibility for her choices rather than blaming circumstances. Habit 1. She clarified what truly mattered to her. Buyer. Creating a personal mission statement that emphasized family relationships, meaningful work, and community contributions. Habit 2. Buyer. She reorganized her schedule to prioritize these important but not urgent activities. Habit 3. Buyer. As she became more centered and clear about her priorities, Elena's interactions with others improved. Buyer. She looked for mutual benefit in difficult workplace negotiations. Habit 4. And practiced empathic listening with her teenage children. Habit 5. Buyer, which transformed their relationship. She built stronger. Buyer. Teams at work by valuing diverse perspectives and looking for synergistic solutions. Habit 6. Buyer. And she maintained her energy and focus through regular physical exercise, continuous learning, meaningful relationships. Buyer and spiritual renewals. Habit 7. The result wasn't just improvement in one area, her entire life shifted. Buyer. Her career advanced as she became recognized for her leadership abilities. Buyer. Her family relationships deepened through better communication and prioritization. Buyer. Her community contributions became more focused and meaningful. And most importantly, buyer. She developed an inner sense of peace and purpose that sustained her through inevitable challenges. Buyer. Elena's story illustrates that the 7 habits don't just provide tools for specific situations, they create a fundamental shift in who you are and how you interact with the world. Represent a principle-centered buyer. Character-based approach to personal and interpersonal effectiveness that stands in contrast to much of today's personality-focused, technique-driven success literature. In a rapidly changing world, where technological, social, buyer, and economic transformations continuously reshape the landscape. These timeless principles provide an anchor, buyer. They focus not on adapting to change, but on the changeless core that allows us to navigate any change effectively: our character, our values, buyer, our capability to make and keep commitments. As we conclude our exploration of the 7 habits, buyer, I encourage you to reflect on how these principles might apply in your own life. Which habit resonates most strongly with you right now, buyer? Where do you see the greatest opportunity for growth and improvement, buyer? What one small step could you take today to begin incorporating these habits into your daily life, buyer? Remember that lasting change rarely happens overnight. It comes through small, consistent actions aligned with true principles, buyer. Begin with something manageable, perhaps 10 minutes of reading each day to sharpen your mental saw, buyer. Or practicing empathic listening in one important relationship, or identifying your key priorities for the week ahead, buyer. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And as you take that step, and then another, and another, buyer, you'll find yourself on the path to greater effectiveness, deeper relationships, and a more purposeful, balanced life, buyer. The 7 habits offer more than techniques for success. They offer a framework for principled living, buyer, for contributing meaningfully to others, and for continuous growth and renewal, buyer. In a world often focused on quick fixes and surface-level changes, buyer, they remind us that true effectiveness comes from the inside out, from character, competence, and the courage to live by timeless principles. As Covey himself put it, buyer, what you are shouts so loudly in my ears that I cannot hear what you say. The habits help us become the kind of person whose actions naturally create positive results, buyer, whose presence naturally builds trust, and whose life naturally inspires others, buyer. This is the ultimate promise of the 7 habits, not just to help us do different things, but to help us become different, effective people. And in becoming more effective individuals, we contribute to creating more effective families, organizations, buyer, communities, and societies. The journey begins with a choice, your choice. The choice to be proactive rather than reactive, buyer. The choice to live by design rather than by default. The choice to focus on what you can influence rather than what you cannot, buyer. The choice to begin today, creating the life and legacy you want to build, buyer. I hope this exploration of the 7 habits has inspired you to take that first step on your own journey toward greater personal and interpersonal effectiveness, buyer. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most powerful and transformative books ever written, buyer. If you found this podcast helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel so you never miss our future episodes, buyer. Your comments and questions are always welcome. What habit resonated most with you, buyer? What challenges do you face in implementing these principles? Share your thoughts below, and let's learn from each other, buyer. And if you enjoyed this content, please give it a thumbs up to help more people discover these life-changing principles. Remember, buyer, true success is not just about achievement, but about contribution. What you learn and apply from today's discussion could be the very thing that transforms not just your life, buyer, but the lives of those around you. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep living with purpose and principle.